Good morning. How's everybody? Y'all excited? I'm at. It is March 22nd, I think it is today. Is that right? 9 a.m. in the morning on Tuesday. And this session is called Change Your Show. We are at the 43rd CALLERLAB convention at the Sheraton Norfolk Waterside Hotel. You got to say Norfolk the right way, right? They taught me how. Bear taught me how to say that on the way over. So anyway, good morning. My name is Mike Hogan. I'm your moderator, and I would like you to please welcome with a real big hand our panelist, Mr. Buddy Weaver. I will tell you in your program it says that Scott Byers is the panelist, and Scott and Aaron were not able to be here this weekend, and so we called Buddy, I don't know, about a week ago, and he goes, okay. So he doesn't have a hunk of paper there to hand to you, but I have had a chance to work it out ahead of time. Let me give you a little background on me and a little background on Buddy. I know all about me, and I'm going to make his stuff up. I'm Mike Hogan. I'm from La Vista, Nebraska, which is a suburb of Omaha. And next month I will have been calling 40 years. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. I started when I was 3. It's starting to get closer like that anyway. And I want to tell you that, first of all, I just want you to know that this is an honor for me that CALLERLAB has asked me to talk about showmanship. If you know my background, I am a marketer by trade. I work in the radio industry, the marketing industry. And so I get to speak at a lot of CALLERLAB conventions about marketing stuff. And so it's kind of nice that they've asked me to talk about this other occupation I've had for 40 years as a square dance caller. So we're going to talk about showmanship, and because this the theme is agents of change, I hope that in some of this there's a piece here and a piece there that you can go, okay, that sounds cool. Maybe I can grab that, and it'll help me to improve my showmanship skills. So here we go. Excuse me. What is showmanship? Showmanship is the skill of performing in such a manner that will appeal to an audience or aid in conveying the performance's essential theme or message. Forty years, yeah. So for a square dance caller, and I mean this, everything you say and do and how you do it from the time you meet the first dancer until you say goodbye to the last dancer is all part of showmanship. So we think of showmanship specifically about what am I going to do on stage when I'm performing. But in our world, it's a whole lot more than that. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. Most of it is part of your human nature, part of just how you act. We learn it over the years, and until you dig it out and have to do a report on it, you really don't give it a lot of thought. I broke this into different sections. Oh, wait a minute. I didn't talk about Buddy Weaver.
We've been talking about it.
Buddy Weaver was born in 1932. No, he wasn't. No, he and I are about the same age. We're 50-something.
Yes.
Buddy is from San Diego, actually a suburb, but I don't know the name of the suburb, but he's from the San Diego area. Originally from Hawaii, and has been a premier entertainer right from the get-go. I remember going to my first national convention, and Buddy Weaver got on the stage and just set him on fire. He was just that good. And he traveled and called full-time for quite a while, and got smart like some of us and said, I probably need to get a real job and pay some real bills. And I know that he owns a company that's something related to the pool industry, right? You build pools, clean. You're a pool boy? You're a pool boy. You're a pool boy. Sure he is.
I wear Speedo every day.
That a boy. For the tape, he wears a Speedo to work every day. And he also owns must be a dozen different record labels. I'm honored enough that he was kind enough to ask me to record for him on hi-hat. He also owns Blue Star and then several other labels, which I'm not going to try and list because I know that I'll forget them. But he is a real leader in the music side of our industry. He and I had a chance to visit about this presentation a little bit. So what we're going to do is I'm going to kind of go through different sections of what I think make for good showmanship, and he's going to add his 2 cents, 4 cents, whatever it is that he wants to add as we go through it. I want to start by telling you that the biggest way that I've learned about things to do relative to entertaining people is mostly by watching others. So there, I'm just going to name names. There are really 4 men that I've learned probably the most from, and I'll tell you that I've learned a lot from a lot of guys. I've been to a lot of clinics. You know, you pick up something from everybody, it seems like. But there's 4 guys that probably were the most instrumental in helping me learn things about showmanship, okay? I break it down into different categories. So I'll tell you that showmanship piece, and then we'll go through the categories. The element of choreographic entertainment, how do you what we call the sequence of calls that we call, and a lot of that stuff I learned probably the most from Jerry Story. Now you guys all know Jerry, and if you dance to Jerry, you know choreographically as well as in many other cases he's a mastermind. I watched Jerry. Actually, I had the chance to haul Jerry around Nebraska for a couple of days in my car and pick his brain while I was doing that. And I figured out that you can take a 0 line, and he knows more really cool get-outs right off the top of his head from a 0 line. He could recite probably 50 of them that are all different, all unique, really cool. I can't I guess I could remember some of them, but what that told me is not only does he have all of those, but there's lots of varying degree of difficulty, and he knows when to use which one to entertain the dancers. So using choreography to entertain is one of those systems. Vocal skills, singing, and music, I probably learned the most from Tony Oxendine. Tony came through Omaha when I'd been calling the grand sum of about 6 months. And it was his first tour across the United States. He had 4 gigs from the East Coast to the West Coast, and one of those stops was in Omaha. And I learned so much about picking music and singing and using a variety of music just from watching him over the years. Lots of other guys as well, but I would say that if there was one guy I had to point to, it'd be Tony Oxendine. Another part of showmanship that we're going to talk about is, you know, I said that you're basically being a showman from the moment that you meet the first dancer to until you leave the last dancer. I learned more about how to talk to people, how to treat people, how to host people, how to make people feel good, how to MC, all of those kinds of things from Jerry Junk. As you know, Jerry Junk is sort of the country gentleman. We think of him that way. And I've had the privilege of calling with Jerry for 30-some-odd years. We do a weekend together in Iowa. And just watching how he manages people, how he makes people feel, the way that he introduces music, the way that he MCs, you know, he does great choreography, he's a great singer, and all of those kinds of things. But people love him because he's the country gentleman, and I've learned so much from him on that aspect. The last part, which is kind of going to tie me back to the start of this thing, which is stage presence, I learned what to do on the stage, how to do it, how to interact, how to get people to look at you and interact with you. I learned and where to move and when to change some of your music, and a lot of that kind of stuff I learned from Garth Brooks. Unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to drive Garth Brooks all over Nebraska. But I work in the radio industry, and I've been associated with country music radio stations for 25 years, something along those lines. 91 to, 25 years. I had the chance to sit in a room with Keith Urban for about 45 minutes. Keith Urban and Mike Hogan sitting at a desk chit-chatting about country music. It was a blast. I happened to be the station manager for a country music radio station when he was starting his solo career. Guy's amazing. I like him, too, because he's about my size. I like that. You guys, you can't really tell how big entertainers are when they're up on the stage, you know. So I've had the opportunity to do some of those things. So let's talk. Okay, so my goal when I do a dance is I want to entertain the dancers so that they feel they've experienced something special and want more. I mean, all of us, when we finish a dance, if we're doing what we're supposed to do, we want those people to go home going, wow, that was cool. I really had a great time. I can't wait till I get the opportunity to dance to that caller again. That's what we all want to do, and that's my goal every time that I get on the stage and get a chance to call a dance for people. Doesn't matter if there's 30 squares. The other day I called a dance for 1 square. We started 10 minutes late because we had to wait for that 8th person to show up. That's central Nebraska. We've got some issues out there, but they're great people, and I will always stop on my way home from Denver and call for them as long as they'll have me. So my recommendation for you in terms of what you're going to do when you're on the stage is to go to concerts or watch them on YouTube and study what those major recording artists actually do and watch how they interact with the crowd. I guess I should take this bullet point by bullet point. So we'll start with stage presence. First of all, I recommend to you that you make your stage a stage. A lot of us end up standing on the floor in a room that's kind of a dance hall, kind of a commons area, and kind of a storage room, right? Okay. So when I come in, I try to get to a dance. I don't always bear, but I try to get to a dance a half hour to 45 minutes early because I want to get in. I want to get my equipment set up. I want to get my table exactly where I want. By the way, I put my table over here. Most callers have the table on the right side. I have it on my left side. I have it on my left side, and I want it on my left side if I can do that because I hold the microphone in my right hand. If I have to make adjustments to my music, it's right here, and I don't have to turn my back on the audience while I'm doing that. Does that make sense? Somebody say yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. So that's how I like to set it up. I don't like the table across in front of me. There are guys that's fine with them, but when I'm on the stage and I'm talking to folks or I'm calling, especially if I have the opportunity, I'll set that stage up with the table going this way, and I'll pull it back so that I have the opportunity to get forward on the stage and walk across past the table, and I get to go over here, and as I'm calling, I can make eye contact with the dancers that are on the far left side of the floor. And I can do the same thing, and I can walk all the way over to this side of the stage, and I can make eye contact, or even talk to, occasionally you say a few things, you're calling away, and you go, hey, beautiful hair, or whatever it is. Something to interact with the folks over here. And, of course, center stage is fine as well, so we'll get into the center stage. Now, I don't know how many of you guys, if you have a stage and you have the ability to do that, I don't know how many guys actually just sort of stand there and call. Okay, George Strait just stands there and sings. If you've been to one of his concerts, it's usually in the round. He's got 4 microphones. He sings 3-4 songs over here. It's kind of like John Jones a little bit, isn't he? Just kind of, and then he just sort of walks over to this microphone and he sings over here. But what you'll see if you go to concerts is most of the time the stage is very wide. Many times there's a runway down the middle where they come out, right? So they could sing just as good just standing in one place. But the reason that they have the runways and they have the stage wide is because they want to get out and not physically touch, but they want to be able to actually get out and have an emotional reaction with the people in every corner of that auditorium the best way that they can. You should do that. You should get on your stage and you should move left. That's your left, correct? And you should move right, and you should go out, and you should interact with those dancers the best that you can. You should, if you're in the room that's also a storage room, you should clear the stuff that's around your stage area, even if you're standing on the floor. How many of you guys all come in, you tear down your equipment? Most guys that I see, they tear down their equipment and they set their yak stack box underneath the table and they set their roll-around bag behind them. Don't do that. Find a closet. Find a corner. Clear all that stuff out. I wish we could be completely wireless so I didn't have a bunch of wires running around. I want as little stuff around the stage area other than the table, because I have to have the table, and a few wires because I have to have the wires. But I don't want a bunch of clutter on my stage. If you have a home club and you have the ability to influence what they do, my recommendation is that every club should decorate for every dance. Now, the reason that I think that is, when people go to a dance, they want to go to an event, right? They're expecting to be entertained. Now, you're not responsible as callers. We're not responsible to decorate for the dance, but we can be responsible to make the stage a stage area. So take your stuff, your extra luggage and all those pieces, and either put them in a closet or put them back in the kitchen, but get them out of your stage area. Now I have a way of doing. Most of us work with round dance instructors. Some round dance instructors know that, some of them don't. So if I'm calling and there's a round dance instructor that's setting up, I will wait until the round dance instructor is there, set up, and then I'll move my stuff out of the way and kind of go, look what I'm doing. I'm putting all my stuff out of here, over here, and making a stage out of it. Sometimes they get it, sometimes they don't. Sometimes I just tell them, move your stuff, right? And of course, if they decorate, sometimes you have the club that that has a really nicely decorated stage, and you're up there calling the last tip. And while you're calling the last tip, somebody comes up and goes behind you while you're calling and starts taking stuff off of the wall and tearing down, and right. So there's only so much of that you control, but you can control what your stage area looks like. Does that make sense? Because you're putting on a show, and the dancers may or may not think about it, but the more you can do that, I think the better it is. Dress the part. We all have different styles of dress. I know a lot of guys wear jeans. A lot of guys will wear a polo shirt. I don't. When I call, generally, if it's a workshop or something like that during the day, I'll wear something like this. I don't necessarily have to have a bolo. That's kind of my thinking. But in an evening dance, I still dress the Western style. Now, there's a lot of guys that are going away from, they're wearing a blazer and they're wearing a tie. I think that's awesome, okay? But there's times when you can be casual, there's times when you can be semi-casual, and there's times when you need to dress up. And so for me, when I do a dance, specifically an evening dance, because I still do the Western style, I have a bolo, and I either have a jacket or I have a vest. You will almost, not never, but you'll almost never see me call an evening dance that I don't have on a jacket or a vest, and I'll always have on a bolo. I've done theme dances where it's a beach dance, and I'm supposed to be wearing a Hawaiian flowery shirt and a pair of shorts and sandals, and I'm telling you, I am so uncomfortable dressing like that. But my point is, whatever style of dress that you have, recognize that there are special dances, evening dances, things that you need to be at the top of your game. So I recommend that you dress appropriately for those events. You can jump in anytime. I already hit move around. I already hit make eye contact with the dancers. Oh, yeah. Smile. Your attitude is so important in terms of the attitude and the reaction that you're going to get back from those dancers. If you're just standing up there and you're calling and you're not enthusiastic, you're, what do I want to say, boring? I don't know. You're going to get that same reaction from the dancers. If you're up there and you're energetic and you're smiling and you're interacting with them, they're going to give you that same feedback. And what happens once they start doing that is it becomes contagious, and the whole crowd, all their spirits are lifted, and they start to get more energetic, more excited about what we're doing. And at the end of the dance, they go home going, wow, that was fun. I mean, part of having fun is that you need to act like you really are enjoying what you're doing up there. I think I said that in it. Act like you like what you're doing. Be friendly, be thankful, be positive and upbeat. Talk to the audience. Welcome them. You know, one of the reasons I want to be at a dance 45 minutes ahead of time is because after I set up my stage and I put my stuff away, I get off the stage and I go down and I get into the greeting line. And I shake people's hands and I hug all the women when they come in through the door. I may not, throughout the dance, have the opportunity to do that, depending on how the setup is. Occasionally I have to do the rounds, and so I almost don't get off the stage. So when you have the opportunity, I hope that it's sincere, that you are really thankful that those folks have taken their time to come and dance to you, and you should show that. Believe me, if you thank them for coming to your dance, they will thank you for calling for them. It's a mutual thing. The last one I had on stage presence is let them thank you. Let me explain what I mean by that. I have for years called with a number of different callers. I pointed this out actually to Jerry Junk one day. We get in the habit of, our routine, and we get to the end of our singing call. And when we're done with the singing call, we pull the needle off the record. Well, now we hit stop on the computer. But, swing your partner home and you sing a little tagline. And if things are going right, they're going to applaud for you, right? And we love that. Let's be honest, guys. We love that, right? So what I see so many callers do is they sing out their singing call, and as soon as they're done singing with their singing call, they say, hey, great job, guys. Nice dancing. Take a break. We'll be right back. Okay, I learned this from Garth Brooks. If they want to clap for you or they want to cheer for you, you let them do it. Okay? I mean, you can tell when they're about done. But I just see so many callers, they do a great job with their pattern, their singing call, people having fun, and the end of that of that tip, they're ready, they're excited. I've had dancers they'll normally they just thank you and they go sit down and that's fine. But I've had plenty of times where the dancers are actually in the square and they turn and look at me to clap or applaud for it, to show their appreciation for what I just did. And if they turn to do that and I go, great, take a seat, right? Let them applaud. I saw Garth Brooks go out on the end of the stage. I don't know what song he did, but he went out, and of course the crowd was just cheering and applauding and standing and making all kinds of noise. And what does he do? He's, I have had the chance to meet him, and I think he's actually a pretty humble guy. He takes his hat off, and he just goes out the end of the stage, and he puts his hat over his heart, and he's like, this is cool. And they're just cheering. And he goes like this. And the place comes unglued, right? So if they really appreciate what you're doing, let them thank you. You have people come up to a dance and they bring you a photo they took of you, or they harvested tomatoes out of their garden. I don't know. They want to give you stuff. Never say no, because they want to give you something. You take it, even if you're going to throw it in the dumpster on your drive home to Omaha. You take it from them and you thank them for it. And the same thing happens at the end of your tip. If they want to thank you by cheering or whatever it is they want to do, you let them do it. And then when they're done, or and you can tell when they're just about done. And then make sure that you thank them and then take your break. Showmanship, stage presence.
Stage presence. Stage presence, to me, instills confidence. You have to instill confidence in the people because, as a showman, the definition of being a showman is being able to put on a show. And having said that, if the people have no confidence in what they're seeing from you or hearing from you, then you're not going to be able to put on an effective show. So it goes to everything that what Mike was saying. I'm just going to kind of tag on to that when he talks about setting up your stage area. And if in some of the halls I work with, I work a lot of dances in a month. Even though I'm a full-time contractor, I probably do about 25 dances a month. Probably too much. But as an aside, some of the places I work on, we have a stage area, and some of them where I'm just right there on the floor. And if I'm on the floor, I have what I call my personal space. And I don't let any squares get in my personal space. Number one, I don't like being crowded. And number two, I want the other folks who are in the audience, in the other squares, to be able to see me. Because if I'm talking to the folks, and you're a dancer, you've been on the floor and the caller's speaking, do you just look at your corner? Or do you turn to face the caller? Now, if you turn to face the caller and you can't see the caller, it takes something away from that effect. So if you're working off the floor, make sure you have a large open area. Get out of my personal space. Not only that, but you're getting dust on my shoes. Which brings me to point number 2 about my shoes. Look good. Appearances matter. Appearances make more of a difference than you know. It costs 99 cents for a roll of floss, 99 cents for a toothbrush, and 99 cents for a tube of toothpaste. $3 is going to go a long way to improving the way you look. Your clothes should be neatly pressed. I'll tell you, when I came in here on Sunday afternoon, the first thing I did was I took the ironing board out and I pressed all my shirts. You say, well, why are you doing that? You're only hanging out with a bunch of other callers. It's because I want to look my best. I polish my boots. I polish my boots before I go to my dance. Because if I'm standing on a stage, what can the people see? They see my boots. They see my jeans. They might see the rest of me, but everything else is eye level. And if you don't think they can notice that you're wearing some stained up jeans or shoes in need of polishing, they notice. And it takes away from your ability to be an effective showman. It takes very little effort to have clothes that fit properly. I have a lot of friends who've gone through a lot of effort to lose weight and continue to wear old clothes and cinch their belts in so tight where they've got folds and rolls in their pants because they've lost all this weight. And I say, man, you look terrific. Go buy some new clothes. But really, it's such a little effort. If your clothes are threadbare, give it away. It doesn't cost a lot of money to buy, to dress well, to have a neat appearance, to make sure that you don't have onion breath or garlic breath, because that's a big turnoff. If you're a showman and you're out there talking to the folks, and you need to be talking to the folks, and you've got bad breath, that's a big turnoff to a lot of people, because they're going to look at this guy, at some level, you've just moved yourself down a notch. Your clothes are wrinkled. You moved yourself down another notch. It looks like you haven't flossed a brush for a few months. You moved yourself down another notch. You know, you could be the world's greatest singer. Garth Brooks and George Strait and all of these fellows who stand up there on a stage have a visually appealing appearance. That's the first thing that grabs you. The second thing that grabs you, and what Mike was talking about when you're talking to the folks, is, have you ever watched some of the, I would call them the kind of rookie performers, the relatively new performers, and they'll get up there and sing a beautiful song. And at the end of the song, thank you very much. And I want to introduce my drummer over here. My drummer over here is Mike. And you say, what is she saying? Or what did he just say? They're not heard. They're not projecting. They're not engaging with the audience. If I'm standing on the floor, I've got limited visibility to the back squares. I know that. That's why I have this open space in front of me. But I always will call to the back squares. If I'm focused on the back squares, peripheral vision allows me to see the squares that are closest to me. That's an easy thing. If I'm going to be extemporaneous sight calling and looking at that one square, we've got a dance on one of my gigs on a weekly basis. We have 14 squares show up there. If I'm looking at that front square, I'll guarantee you the other 13 squares will notice that he's not watching us. I watch the back squares. I'm watching for the movement of the floor. I'm watching for the head movement. And when I'm talking to them, I'm engaging with that person. I can see Matt Worley right back there. I can see Jerry Biggerstaff back there. I'm engaging with those two gentlemen back there. I happen to know them. I'm speaking to them. I see all of you right here. I can see Jeff Palmer right here in front of me. He's right here the closest to me, but I can see everything. And if you are, what's the word? Projecting out there, now you can easily be hurt, especially if you're talking to the folks. Put the music on, get them squared up. I start with a singing call. I always start my dances with a singing call. Jim, right? Every time you've come to my dance, I start with a singing call. It allows me to vocally warm up. It allows the dancers to get used to my voice. It allows me to just engage them in something that they can probably sing along with and build their self-confidence. Because here again, I'm going to come back to that whole confidence thing. If they have no confidence in me, then as a showman, it doesn't make a difference how good my singing is or how wonderful my choreography is. If I've broken them down, if I'm not engaged with them, if they look at me and say, who is this schlub? You know, there's no showmanship. It's zero from that point on. Being approachable too. What you were saying was very good. Greeting the people, and I tend to be very careful about that. I'm not a full-on two-armed hugger. I tend to be more respectful of a lot of folks because some folks out there are not the hugging type. And we've seen, a lot of folks who come into the beginner program and they get the angels who say, I'm going to show you what a yellow rock is. Goodbye. This is welcome to a new generation. And it doesn't make a difference if you're 20 or 55. A lot of the folks who are in my beginner program are in their 50s and 60s. And they're not used to going to something open and just hugging people. I want you to think about the last time you walked into a movie theater and walked up to a stranger and just gave him a big hug. Hi, we're glad. It's nice to see you at this movie theater. They'll call the police. I want you the next time you go to pick up your kids or grandkids at the elementary school, go walk over and hug some strange children. See what happens to you. You have a question? You have to put your question on the microphone. Yes, sir. Hang on, the microphone will be coming to you. But keep that in mind. It's nice to be warm and it's nice to be friendly, but be respectful of other folks. Yes.
Jerry Biggerstaff from North Carolina. If you'll pay attention with the ladies, especially some of the older ladies, you can tell if they want to hug you or not.
Absolutely.
From the way you approach them. And I usually, if they show me that they don't want to hug me, I'll shake their hand and put my other hand and pat them on top of the hand and say something to them.
There you go.
There's ways, if you're paying attention, that you can tell that.
Absolutely. And Jerry points out something that's very important that we haven't touched on is being in tune with your audience and being able to read people's eyes and seeing that somebody would like to be hugged or somebody would prefer not to be hugged. To see if they're engaged with what you're doing. A good buddy of mine says if he's doing a singing call and people are talking in the square, he said, this is a singing call I'm going to drop from my repertoire. It's not a good song because the people are not engaged in it. We're going to get into music and on that in a minute, but that's part of the whole. I guess we can tie in with what you're talking about, Jerry, is being able to read the people in that manner. You instill confidence. That's all I have about stage presence.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so the second piece here is patter and choreography, entertaining with patter and choreography. So in both the patter section and the singing call section, we're going to talk not just about singing and choreography, but about music. Because whether it's patter or singing call music, a big piece, and I think a piece that a lot of guys don't pay as much attention to, is music. Music entertains people. So in your patter, I recommend that you use multiple genres of music unless there's a specific theme. Over the last several years, there's been all of the new alternative music that we're using for patter. I don't have a lot of it. I have some. I don't have tons of it for a couple of reasons. A lot of that material is researched. You found it. You downloaded the original or the karaoke version from Amazon.com or iTunes or someplace, and then you've cut and pasted and recreated that music to make it a great piece of patter that's 12 minutes long or whatever length that you want to make that. I unfortunately do not have hours and hours that I can spend doing that. So I don't have a lot of alternative music. Most of the stuff that I have is something that I can use. I can buy it, I can download it, and I can use it. And, the software just cuts back to the start and plays it again. I'll let him talk more about that actual aspect. You good with that? Because you're a little more musical than I am in terms of, I know you use more alternative music, and I know that you probably do more music production work than what I do. But I still use a lot of different genres of music. I like the old 2/4 time boom chuck, boom chuck, boom chuck stuff. I like to start my dance with a piece of patter that has some kind of a melody, kind of comfortable piece. I don't want to start my dance, my first patter, with a hit 'em hard, bam, bam, bam. There's a point in my dance when I want to use that, but I do want to use that. That's more of a 4/4 time kind of thing, where it's a real heavy driving bass kind of a selection of music. I use a lot of different kinds of music as I go throughout my dance for patters. From the choreographic side, it makes sense to me that you've got to use good judgment and determine what the floor can do. So, I have some real simple stuff. For me, it's Dixie style. I go into a place. Now, first of all, let's be honest. Most of us, when we go to call a dance, probably 95% of the time, we're calling for somebody we've called for before. Really. I mean, I travel a lot, but most of the clubs that I call for, I do the same dance for them every year. So when I go in and call for Rolling Wheels in Denver, I already know what kind of dancers I can expect to have on that floor, because I've called for them before. I know if they're going to be able to handle some really difficult material. I know that dance in Nebraska that I do on my way home, I'm going to have to spoon feed them everything. I know that. So I don't have to use Dixie style to figure out if they have their mainstream stuff together. But every now and then I get to go and call for, I've started calling in Chicago the last 6-7 years, I guess. And the first couple of times that I went into Chicago, I never called for any of those people. I knew 3 or 4 people on the floor. That's it. And so, first tip, and when I'm doing my patter, I use a Dixie style to a wave and watch. And if they just go, whoosh, nothing to it, great. What's next? Well, maybe I'm going to do Past the Ocean from Half Sashayed. That's going to tell me real quick, not just what they can and can't handle, but I'm going to be able to identify dancers that can handle it and dancers that can't. So I use simple stuff to figure out what they can handle, which leads me to the next piece where I say, bore them a little and kill them a little, but just a little. So here's what that means. I know that when I'm done with a dance, I want everyone to go home feeling like they got something that they really enjoyed out of that dance. But specifically with patter and choreography, at every dance we have the best dancers that can handle everything left-handed, and I call it dancing on their thumbs. And they thrive on, give me the puzzle, give me something tricky, give me something intricate, challenge my mind, make me think about what I'm dancing. Right? We have those, and we have some of those people at every dance we do. Now, how difficult? I've got to figure that out. But there's always that group, and there's always the other end of the scale where I've got folks that are just out of class, or I have folks that go dancing 2-3 times a year, and they really have to have standard application stuff and calls that aren't called as often, like spin chain through. That's a quick identifier for me. I called a festival in a faraway place. I'm thinking it was, what do we got?
Des Moines.
It was Des Moines. Let's go with Des Moines. It wasn't Des Moines, but let's go with Des Moines. It's only 2 hours. By the way, the national convention is in Des Moines this year. We hope that you will make it. So I called spin. I actually went. The festival that I went to had a trail in dance. It was a convention. It was a state convention. I went to the trail in dance, and I just danced. And one caller that night called spin chain through, and the entire floor had trouble with it. So I knew the next day when I was calling that if I was going to do spin chain through, actually what it gave me was material for my mainstream workshop. Because I knew that they couldn't do spin chain through, and I knew if I had scoot back if I didn't follow scoot back with a boys run, I had issues. I learned that from the night before, right? That's fine. I don't care. But I'm able to determine the most difficult material that the dancers on the floor that thrive on the difficult stuff, and the dancers on the floor that really need some basic application stuff, fairly simple. So when I do my dance, I have to somehow entertain both of those categories of people and everybody in between them with choreography. So that the typical way that I do my patter in terms of degree of difficulty is if I have a dance that's 7 or 8, it's usually 2.5 hours, so that's usually 7 tips for me. Because the one thing that I'm not very good at is short patters. Sorry. At least I know that. So I start with easy stuff. It's like Buddy said, he starts with a singing call. He wants to make them feel at ease, make them feel comfortable, get them used to his voice. So I start with easy material. And it's, I paid good attention to hand flow or body flow and hand usage and timing and all of those kinds of things. And I just move people through, and I can identify very quickly if there's people that have issues with more difficult choreography. And that part of the dance they love. When I get to the middle of the dance, 4th tip, somewhere in there, that's when I'm usually calling the most intricate choreography that I'm going to call for the evening. That means that those folks that can't handle much stuff, I'm killing them a little, right? But I can't do that all night. If I do that all night, those folks won't ever come dance to Mike Hogan again. But yet if I don't put enough intricate material in so that those really accomplished dancers are also entertained, they're going to go home and go, Mike Hogan's boring caller. I'm not going to go dance to him again. I want every single person in that hall when they leave to go, I'm going to go dance to that guy again. And that's an ego thing for me, but as an entertainer, isn't that what you want? So you got to bore them a little, and you got to kill them a little. And you got to know when to do which. And then what I do then is, after I've kind of hit that peak of the difficult material in my choreography, I back it off. Usually by the second to the last tip, I'm doing just some memorized stuff that I have that flows real good. There's just a little bit of surprise fun get-outs, but not difficult material. They're back to kind of settling down in, and then I always finish my dances. The last tip, I do 2 singing calls. And they're very different songs usually. One has got a lot of high energy. One is slower, very much more ballad-like. And I try to use material, so I try to finish my patterns and specifically my singing calls with really big, the most popular stuff that I do. Because, where you really know you've done well is when you do the last song and they just stand there and they clap for you, and sometimes they even make you do an encore. I don't know if you guys ever had the chance to do an encore, but man, I'll tell you what, it is if every night. Good answer. So that's what I mean when I say bore them a little and kill them a little. I talk about using memorized get-outs. You guys have a lot of memorized get-outs? Most guys have some. I think you can be very, if you have plenty of them and you know when to use them, you can be amazingly entertaining because you don't have to sight your way out to a corner. It's a memorized thing. It's a module. You put me in a zero, one that I hear all the time, a lot of guys use, zero line, touch a quarter, single file, circulate, 1.5, 3 pair same-sex straight, only the girls spread apart and all the girls turn around. Element left, right? You've heard it, you've seen it. Some of you guys have seen that. Dancers now know that get out. At least, if you use it a lot. But it's still different, and it's gimmicky. So now it's left hand, touch a quarter, single file, circulate, 1.5, 3 pair same sexes. All 3 pairs spread apart, and all the boys turn around. Element left. It's just a switch on it, and they go, "Oh, that was cool," right? Heads. I do stir the buckets. Anybody do stir the buckets? I do stir the buckets. I've done it for 30 years, 35 years. I finish every pattern with a stir, so I have 100 of them. Heads past the ocean, head ladies trade, extend, recycle, veer left, Ferris wheel, swing through. Centers do a swing through. All the boys pass through. Centers, center boy hold the girl's hand, wheel and deal in the middle, sweep a quarter, and reverse roll her away, and the other boy turn around. You can get that off the tape if you didn't write it down. Yeah, don't call it that fast either. Right? It's just memorized. But for them, they're like, whoa, how'd they do that? It's just memorized. But they think it's cool. And it's way too intricate for you to try and cite that stuff. Just have it memorized. So I recommend that you do some of that. Gimmicks. I love gimmicks. I wouldn't get carried away with them. I will, I especially have a great recovery system if I'm messing up, and if I've messed up and I didn't get your corner, got the wrong corner. It happens about once a tip. Yeah, no. So I do a lot of modules. I do what I used to think it was mental image. So I'll play with them and I'll go, boy, especially if I'm having squares that are having issues with some of the more difficult choreography, I'll go, okay, sometimes it's easier this way, and I'll turn my back and I'll call. And usually when I do that, I'll call them all the way out to a stir the bucket. Now, the material's not as difficult, but I've changed the whole pattern from the difficult material to I'm just done. I've been laughing at some squares that have been having issues up front, and I'm just going to go, I'm not going to pay any attention to you anymore. And as soon as I do that, I call them out to a stir the bucket, turn around, and if they haven't all left the floor to play with me, they're like, wow, that was cool. But I can only do that once, right? You can't do that stuff all night long. So gimmicks are kind of fun. You just have to have some and know when to use them. The last part, I think, is it's about writing choreography. Most of the choreography that I write, I actually write while I'm driving. Because driving from Omaha to Denver, as an example, is 7.5, 8 hours. And it really is the only time that in my life, that I get to just sit there and not have something I have to be working on. I have essentially 2 full-time jobs, calling and my career in radio. And so most of the time when I get to write my choreography, it's when I'm driving. I start thinking about formations and setups and get-outs and all those kinds of things. Saw somebody do something really cool last night that I'm going to kind of play around with, see how I can make it my own. but you need to be writing choreography. You know, I think about I've been calling for 40 years. I'm always working on what can I be doing to get better at what I'm doing, better at my trade. And choreography is what you need to write choreography on a regular basis. Keeps your mind sharp. Keeping your mind sharp allows you to react to what's going on the floor better and still keep that entertainment value. So write choreography and practice. Mr. Weaver.
I like what he says about expanding your abilities. And choreography, for me, is one step, but also music is another thing. Because for a long stretch there, I was very involved in choreography. As a full-time caller for many, many years, it was my duty to write material every single day. And, you know, we had some pretty tough A2 groups up there in California, and the material was tough. I mean, people would leave the dance and say, I've got a headache now. Well, congratulations, job well done. But I began to realize that became very boring for me. It was monochromatic. There needed to be more to it than just choreography. And so for me, I began to explore into music, and I began to read more about music and learn more about music and explore more and listen to it after I've read an article about rhythms and read an article about orchestration, and kind of start to pick up and pull from that, kind of tying that into what Mike is talking about. And it's taking choreography and music are two different aspects to me of showmanship. They're not exclusive to each other, because the choreography should marry comfortably to the music. If the music you're using is very driving, skillet licking. Everybody remember the old skillet licking on Blue Star, or Up the Creek, or Crackerjack. Fast driving. That's not the piece of music where I'm going to say heads past the slide through past the ocean, sides long ways around the heads past the ocean. Girls work as couples or anything else like that. That choreography makes the people stop and have to focus in on what I'm saying, and the music becomes a distraction. Now I'm not really a showman, and I'm showing poor showmanship skills by choosing music that doesn't blend itself well with choreography. Choosing the right music that works well with your choreography is a very important part of showmanship. I just did a series of articles for American Square Dance Magazine, 3, in fact, that talked about musical programming and how you can start to learn about music, how each piece of music elicits an emotion from people, whether it's excited or melancholy or somewhere in between. But every piece of music has that, and the more you can tune into that, the more you can use it as a showmanship tool. If I know that if I put Green Grass at Home on, that's got some very, very laid-back beat. It's a shuffle rhythm. The music is country. It's got a lot of mandolin. It's just very laid back. The lyrics are somewhat melancholy. You could use comical lyrics, but it's still just, that's not what I'm going to open my dance with. When I walk out there in that first tip and everybody's excited, oh, we've got Buddy Weaver here tonight, oh, we're ready to go. And he comes in and he says, well, the old hometown looks the same as I step down. And the people saying, oh, man, what a downer this is. Likewise, if from a choreographic standpoint, if I come in on that very first singing call and they say, oh boy, Buddy Weaver's here tonight, we're amped and ready to go, and the first thing out of my mouth, I put the singing call down for maybe a nice upbeat song like Rocky Top, the girls face the boys, grand square, wish I was on, and I've just blown them off the floor by girls face the boys, grand square. Choreographically, I messed myself up again. So it's being able to program that material in, and part of that is knowing your audience. I'm assuming that all of you guys call, or ladies call, for the same groups every week, correct? And you know your age group. I call for a lot of the same groups. I tend to know that if it's an afternoon dance, the folks are going to be a little more geriatrically advanced. Okay, so that being said, they're going to probably appreciate a slower tempo. They're going to appreciate songs like "When the Red Red Robin Comes a Bobbing Along." They would probably appreciate that song more so than something hard rocking or something with lyrics that may be inappropriate or may be questionable or objectionable. And having said that, I'm going to choose the music that goes with it, and I'm going to choose the choreography that goes with it. Now, here's where I see we as callers are kind of oblivious to this, and it's what I consider to be a mutually exclusive arrangement. Choreography can either be treated as a ceiling or a floor. And I'm going to try to be brief with this, but when CALLERLAB programs came into effect in 1974 and 76, and Mainstream was created as a high-level program. It was meant to curb how much new material was coming in. When Mainstream came about, the club that I danced with back in Kailua on Oahu, our caller had to teach us probably 12 new calls so we could move up to Mainstream. Okay? Now, since 1974, 1976, Mainstream has grown even larger. But in our Southern California market, we have Plus as an entry level. So we don't look at Mainstream as being the highest you can go. It's somewhere down here on the bottom. So the perspective when I walk into a dance, let's say the dance is going to be a Mainstream dance. It's either I can't go any higher than Mainstream, or I can look at it saying I'm not going to call anything less than the entire Mainstream program and every single variation. Now, what that does to me, mindset-wise, I'm either coming in there, if it's a ceiling, I'm an entertainer. I'm going to entertain these folks. If I say I'm never going to go higher than Ferris wheel, then Ferris wheel being the last call on the basics program, that means I probably won't even touch Ferris wheel the entire night. But we're going to spend a lot of time choreographically, maybe doing some fun things with ladies' chain, do-sa-dos, right and left throughs, flutter wheels, or something that's very easy, very well accepted. If I come in, approach it as basics or Mainstream being the floor and saying, well, Ferris wheel, instead of no, I can't go any higher than that, says I'm not going to go any lower than that, it changes my mindset to being one of I'm not entertaining them so much as I'm going to test them. I'm going to be testing them. And I'm going to see how well their caller taught them. And if the caller didn't teach them very well, you see your caller didn't do that very well. You know, then now I feel like I'm taking them and rubbing their nose into it a little bit. And from a showmanship standpoint, if that's the image that I want to have as a caller, if that's the reputation that I want, is one of, oh, he's going to really put you through your paces, and he's going to really test you, then by all means do it. But that, for me, is not my reputation. Jim, you live in my market. And I don't think my reputation is one of being...
Wait.
You have to put on the microphone.
Jim Smith from California. I remember a dance that you did for us that was supposed to have been a plus dance, and you called Basic 50 the whole night. The dancers did not know that he was calling Basic 50. I mean, I think you threw in maybe 1 or 2 plus calls just for the icing, but the presentation was done so well that the dancers never knew what was going on.
So there you go. It's the mental approach that you bring in, and this is not something that I walk in and it's done on the fly. It is done well in advance as part of my preparation when I go in there. I program everything out. I program my music out. The music has got to fall into a certain place. When it comes to music and choreography, I keep my patterns at no more than 7 minutes. Period. 7 minutes is drop dead. We are done. And if I go past 7 minutes, I feel it. I feel like, when is this thing going to end? And I look down at the timer and it's 8 minutes. Well, no wonder I feel this way. Now, I don't know, with my version of software, the old Square SQ View, you could set the loop to loop once. And for me, looping once, that's 7 minutes. That's done. We're done. That's part of my showmanship approach. When I go in and call, especially if we're doing an advanced dance, I have a 7-minute patter, and then we use computer squares. And then we switch squares. Change to a new computer number, and we do another 7-minute patter. And then we take a hard 6-minute break. And it dings after 6 minutes, and everybody jumps up off their chairs and gets into a square. I may not even be near the stage, but it's almost Pavlovian that people are now accustomed to this. It's part of my showmanship technique, and they know that. And especially on the very first tip, if my patter runs more than 5 minutes on my first tip, I do singing call, and I'll run probably a 5-minute patter. I've had the round dance cure come up to me afterwards. He said, "Did you cut that tip short?" I said, "Nope, get to work."
Pavlovian. I like that.
Did you like that? Pavlovian.
Yeah, that's great. Singing calls. All right. So kind of the same thing I talked about patter. We think more about singing calls in terms of genres of music than we do patter. But I like music. I like all kinds of music. And there's certain kinds that I probably do better than others, I suppose. But I love to sing. I started calling because I love to sing. I was 13 years old. I sang with 2 groups already in school, played the guitar and the saxophone. And I wanted nothing to do with square dancing, but Mom and Dad insisted. And after I figured out what it was, I was like, I can't wait to call. And so I'm lucky enough that I sing okay, and I can do a lot of different genres of music. I think today, as we think about entertaining people, our age group has changed. It has. When I started calling 40 years ago, everybody was grandma and grandpa. Today, everybody's mom and dad, or even younger than that. And even though they the oldest dancers were 70 back then, and the oldest dancers were 70 today, there's 40 years of difference of the music that they grew up with. So when I'm hearing some of this new stuff, what I think is new music coming out that's classic rock, there's been a lot of kind of classic rock stuff that's come out. I'm a little bashful about, or a little nervous about, whether the dancers are going to accept some of that. I love it. I love some of that stuff, but I'm not sure if the dancers are going to accept it. Like there's a brand new singing call on hi-hat from a group called Poison. You want to play it? You have it?
Yeah, he actually did a very good job on this. And tying into what Mike is talking about is finding the song. I think Mike told me the story. He says he goes out to his group. He says, "I've got this brand new singing call I'm learning, and it's done from a group."
It's a heavy metal hard rock group called Poison.
Brett Michaels is a lead singer,
and the dancers go. You can see them. A lot of them, especially the older ones, they're going, "Oh my God, here we go." This was not. I didn't plan this. We did this. Not a dime, I can't pay my rent. I can barely make it through the week. So it's the song "Nothing But a Good Time" from Poison, but our band is primarily a bluegrass band. So when I introduce the song, I tell them all about it being from this heavy metal rock group called Poison, and then I tell them about our band, and I say, and my introduction is, "This is Poison's Nothing But a Good Time Gone Ricky Skaggs." And it just drives. With harmony vocals by Mike Bramlett and his son. It's kind of a cool song. Brand new out on hi-hat. Thanks for plugging my music. Thanks for plugging your music. Anyway, but what I find is I use lots of different kinds of instrumentation. I don't want everything to be bluegrass sounding. I want all kinds of stuff. I like big band music. I recommend that you use all kinds of different kinds of music. Every singing call that you do you should do well. I think you should, for the most part, if you don't like the song, you shouldn't do it, even if you do it well, for the most part. There's a few songs that the dancers just expect that you should do, and you should probably learn them and have them in your repertoire. But if you don't sing well, if it's a song and you're just sort of mediocre at it, I don't think you should do it. You should put it aside. You know, you buy new music, you try new music, you like it, but it's just not you, put it aside. Do good stuff. Did you have a comment you wanted to add? Hang on. Hang on, Dale. You got to give me the name and address and all that.
All right, my name's Dale Chase. I've only been at this for going on 10 years. I just joined CALLERLAB. I used to be with American Callers Association. So, but I found out a couple things. I call for 2 groups, and that one you just played. I love it. I love the beat. I love an upbeat. But they won't dance to it because it's a banjo and it's a couple other things. And most of the groups that I call for are in their late 60s and 70s. Now, the ones they like, you ready for this? Don't get mad with me. I've got 7 records by that man down there, and they love his music. They go nuts. Why? I don't know. But this is the problem I'm having.
So that song that he just played is...
I don't hear a problem. He likes my music, so I don't hear the problem.
But it is his music. And I'll tell you that I don't do a lot of bluegrass type stuff. I pick and choose when I do it. I do a lot of different genres of music, and you should do the same. I think, and by the way, that piece of music that they don't like is your music. I just thought I'd.
Well, yeah,
I love it.
Variety is the spice of life. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, and
They don't want to do it.
yeah. So
Wait, yeah.
yeah, hang on. You're talking about music like this. This is
Yes.
This is what your folks want.
This is what they want.
There's a reason why they want this.
Because of the beat.
That's absolutely right.
Because of the beat. My wife's the same way. I'll play a record and she's going, "Don't you ever play that." I'm going, "Why?" She said, "It's not an upbeat tune."
You know, I know we're kind of running short on time, but I want to digress just briefly. The music that we as producers put together today versus the music that we put together 20 years ago has much more percussion in it. We, from a strictly musical standpoint, we use kick drum more than we ever did before, and so the kind of music that you're talking about, like we put on the Blue Star, we do it on purpose. It's very strongly percussive, and I actually started doing it because I wanted it, because I need to feel the beat, and that's probably what you're experiencing from your folks too. But I still encourage you to go out there and feed them a little bit more variety.
Absolutely. Variety is the spice of life. And I use a lot of the stuff that you're talking about. So because I use a lot of that and I love that. I love a good high energy driving beat. I also do ballads that are slower with really beautiful instrumentation, but not a very high driving beat. But because I use all kinds of music, if it's a place that I go to regularly, I've earned the right to use whatever kind of music that I want, because they know that I'm not going to feed them a singing call that's blah. I'm going to use a slower paced thing at the right time in my dance. I'm going to use upbeat stuff to bring the energy in the room back up. We'll move quickly because there's probably a few questions, but and we're running out of time. I'm going to recommend that you do sing-alongs. I love sing-alongs. Now, I love to sing, and I sing okay. And I love to sing. But there's nothing like, if you go to a Garth Brooks concert and he hits the first couple of notes to Friends in Low Places, he doesn't have to, all he's got to go is look at him go, go. And they will sing the entire song. And they love that they can do that. Let your dancers do the sing-alongs. They love that stuff.
When you do have those kinds of songs, like the sing-alongs, be mindful of the choreography that you're using in there. Those are not the times to use interesting choreography. Those are the times that you're going to use the same figure 4 times, and so that the folks get a chance to enjoy themselves and sing along versus having to listen to you. They really do have a choice. You know, if you give them a lot of interesting choreography, tricky choreography, you're forcing them to no longer listen to the music and listen to you, and that changes the whole showmanship perspective.
Completely. There are singing calls that I change the figure for all 4 figures, and there's singing calls that I never change the figure at all. And there's also singing calls like that have special instrumentation in them. You get a singing call that has a grand square in the middle that is just, you're not supposed to sing. Well, the reason you're not supposed to sing is because there's something really special about the music. And if that's the case, you should let the music play, right? So you have all those kinds of things. I already said don't do singing calls that, only do singing calls that you like and that you do well. If you like it and you don't do it very well, don't do it. Don't do it. In practice. More on singing calls?
Yeah, watch your audience too. Be mindful of some of the lyrics in there. I'm not a prude, but there are some lyrics that there's a song. I can never say the title without laughing. And I tried to do this singing call. My buddy says, "Oh, we're going to do the singing call together." It's you make my pants
want to get up.
Yeah. Stop it. See, I'm sorry. To me, it smacks of double entendre, and I just can't stop laughing when I hear this title. And so for me, that's not a song that's in my wheelhouse. If the minute I start saying it, I feel myself starting to blush. And I'm sure the lyrics are not intended that way. But, as you said, if it's not your thing, don't sing the song. And that song is just not my thing. And so if that song is your thing, bully. Go for it.
Just real quick, I touched on theme dances. I don't want to stay there very long. Prepare ahead of time. A lot of us do themed dances, a lot of 50s and 60s dances and that kind of stuff. This is a whole different kind of showmanship. If you've done your homework on a dance that has a theme, they'll really know. So what I do, if I do a 50s or a 60s dance, as an example, is I already pre-programmed everything that I'm going to do that night. I've gone through and I've selected all of my songs. I've put them in order in terms of drivers, slower melody kind of stuff. I know exactly where I want to go with all of that music. And if I can, I'll arrange it across the decade from the oldest song to the newest song, or I'll go the other way and I'll arrange it from where the songs at the end were the number 1 song, number 2 song, number 3 song of that decade. That means I've got to do a lot of research. So when I do a 60s dance, it sounds a little bit like a Casey Kasem show, because I will introduce every song that I'm going to do, and I might tell them who the artist was and the year that it came out and have them try and guess what the song is. Or I'll tell them the song and I'll tell them who the author was and the story behind that song and how that song was written. They love that I do the homework and tell them the story of that decade and the music of that decade.
And you can use that same tool not only for specialty dances, but you can use it in your regular dance, because that's another showmanship tool that we often overlook, is the story. And folks love to be tied into the music, love to be tied into your program. And if you're doing a 50s song, it doesn't have to be a whole 50s dance. It could be the 50s song, and you've got something clever you want to talk about that it ties it in for them, maybe a personal story. That is what is another showmanship tool. Talk to the folks just a little bit before you start. The one thing that we also have seen is that when 2 callers tend to get up together, and you've all been in there where you've got more than 1 caller up there, is when the 2 guys seem to be kibitzing so much with each other, it's a private joke, and none of the dancers are in on it, and that's boring to the people. However, if the two callers are up there saying, Mike, have you heard my last singing call? And Mike says,
No.
I certainly hope so. Now, that you see, now you've let everybody else in on the joke, and you say, well, okay, it's not my last singing call, it's my latest singing call, and it's one that was done by the group Poison, but hey, all you bluegrass people, this is for you too, and away you go.
And away you go.
It's a little showmanship technique. You get two callers, play off each other for the benefit of the audience.
I've already pretty much touched on being a host, I believe, so I'll let you read that. And then I just want to, because this is, it's agents of change, my recommendations, if you want to change your show or essentially improve your showmanship, very straightforward. Go to concerts. Watch the guys that make millions of dollars entertaining people and see what they do and see how they do it and see what you can take from that and bring back to how you perform. Analyze where they are on the stage, how they interact. Analyze the sequence in which they play their songs, because Garth Brooks is not going to play this really hot killer song, man, and then follow it up with another one, man, and then after about 3 or 4 of those, it's too late. He's going to come back and do a ballad, and he will control the emotions of the audience the whole time that his concert's going on. You'll learn a ton if you'll do that. Record your dances. Anybody ever record your dances and then play them back, listen to them, or even record them and then get a square together and dance to yourself? If you don't know if you're clip timing or if you're stalling, record your dances and dance to yourself. You'll hear stuff. The dancers that are dancing with you will go, that was really good. And you'll hear stuff that'll make you cringe. Record your dances and listen to them. Write choreography. I know guys that haven't bought music in 5 years, 6 years. You're doing a disservice to your dancers if you're not interjecting new music. I'm not saying you have to. I buy a lot of new music. You don't have to buy lots of new music, but buy new music and work it in. Learn the stories of the songs. And ultimately, it's the same thing. Practice. But practice from a standpoint of, instead of, I'm just going to learn a new singing call, get in your mind that entertainment piece. How does this affect showmanship? How can I do this to bring out more showmanship and do a better job of entertaining the dancers instead of just that piece of it? Does that make sense? Those are my recommendations. Mr. Weaver, anything you want to add? We are out of time. Gentlemen, ladies, if you'd give a nice hand to Mr. Buddy Weaver. Thank you.
And Mike Hogan. Thank you. Any
Enjoy the
questions?
commission.
If you have any questions, please hold them for next year.